Hi everyone, Jeff Booth from OpenDOC here, and I'll be hosting our webinar for today. And we're just going to give it another couple minutes for people running behind, and so we'll look to start about 5 minutes after the hour. Hi everyone just joining. We're just waiting another couple minutes for last minute arrivals, and we'll start in about 2 or 3 minutes. Thanks. All right. Well, it looks like we have a good turnout so far, and we'll let some people continue joining in. But I think it's probably about time to get started. So, thank you everyone for joining the webinar today, and we're going to talk about improving transparency and efficiency with warehouses and drivers. We have the webinar scheduled for about an hour, but we're actually shooting for about 20 to 30 minutes with some Q&A at the end. So I'm going to start sharing my camera now, and I think the rest of our presenters will be as well. And so let's get started. We're really excited to be talking about this today just because we see the pain and the gaps that exist in our process, and we think it's a pretty fun one to dive into. So I'm going to start by introducing our panelists. And we'll start with Eric Weidl, the co-founder of Doc 411 and the current CEO. He founded Doc 411 in 2015 after seeing the need for centralized warehouse and facility information, including feedback from the people using them, drivers. A recent survey from Fleet Owner magazine highlighted poor facility information as a top driver concern. Government and industry reports and Doc 411's own research show a lack of clear, consistent, and up-to-date data around facilities that impact the industry to the tune of hundreds of $millions per year through delays, missed appointments, and overall higher shipping rates. Doc 411 software gives shippers an easy way to post and update their facility profiles. Next, we have Bob La Loggia, the founder of Appointment Plus in 2001, which provided scheduling solutions across hundreds of use cases. And during that time, Bob saw the rise of demand and supply chain. So in 2018, he launched OpenDOC, which built on the Appointment Plus software with a logistics focus. Now OpenDOC seeks to partner with warehouses to manage their appointments, empower their carriers to schedule their appointments online, and help with the management of that process. And lastly, I'm Jeff Booth, and I'm just going to be hosting today. I'm the product manager for OpenDOC over the last year. Previously worked in finance, analytics, and operations across a few industries, including a stint at Global Trans, a large freight brokerage based here in Arizona. And so there I helped lead a carrier sales team, and I first saw the pain of logistics scheduling. I saw tons of phone calls, the never-ending email chains, just trying to set up an appointment. And so I was excited to come join the team here, and excited to host the webinar today with Bob and Eric. So let's dig in a little bit to who OpenDOC and Doc 411 are. So with that, after the acclaimed introductions, Bob, tell us more about OpenDOC.
Thanks, Jeff. First of all, thanks also to Eric for this wonderful partnership. We're excited to work with Doc 411, and mostly excited about the value that it brings to the clients that we serve. So what is OpenDOC? As Jeff mentioned, OpenDOC is a dock scheduling platform. It helps warehouses manage the flow of trucks into and out of their facilities, and provides a lot more visibility into the schedules for each dock for the day. An important part of it also is that it helps communication between warehouses and carriers. Again, as Jeff mentioned, it can be a bit of a cumbersome process to get a load scheduled for delivery. And what OpenDOC does is it helps streamline that process by allowing those carriers and brokers to book appointments themselves, but also by allowing that information to flow a little bit more easily among warehouse staff and those carriers and brokers through that process of booking an appointment online. So the heart and soul of this is that ability. So previously, the process of getting a load scheduled was very cumbersome. Lots of emails, lots of phone calls, sometimes even text messages, very frustrating at times. Oftentimes for something that has some time sensitivity to it, so even more frustrating. This process of allowing brokers and carriers to book themselves saves a lot of time. It saves time for warehouse staff, freeing them up to do other things that are more important than going back and forth trying to schedule a load, but also saving a lot of time for the carriers, because time is money for both the carriers, brokers, as well as the warehouse staff. And then also a big part of what OpenDOC provides is that ability to track statuses of loads. So arrived, scheduled, no-show, late, all those very important statuses that a load can be in or appointment can be in that directly relates to performance, as well as the ability for management to make decisions. So that's a bit of an overview of OpenDOC.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. And Eric, I think people are already probably seeing this and hearing a little bit of the background and making the connection of how we overlap and how we'll work together. So tell us more about Doc 411.
Yeah, and I want to thank the OpenDOC team for being a great partner. I think that partners have been very important to Doc 411, and OpenDOC has been the perfect example for what a good partner should be. Doc 411 is a warehouse or facility information resource, a directory, if you will, online for everyone in the trucking, logistics, transportation industry. We started because my co-founder, Dan, was a warehouse manager for a regional HVAC distributor here in the Midwest, Chicago area. And one of the things that he saw, and he was new to the industry when he started with that company. And so it was one of those opportunities where somebody with fresh eyes to a problem saw an opportunity that people who had been in the industry for years just accepted that that's the way it was. And one example of what he was seeing was drivers would use Google Maps or something like that and put in the street address for their facility. And for their facilities, the addresses they were getting were commonly the front door of the corporate office, not the yard entrance. So what would end up happening is the drivers would spend 5, 10, or 15 minutes actually getting in and out of the cab or making a phone call to the receptionist who was in the front office there, whatever it was, to find out where they were actually supposed to go. And then there would be times where they would find the driver wandering around the warehouse because they were looking for information that they didn't have access to, or wondering if there was a bathroom they could use, or if they had a forklift or what. And thinking about it, this lack of information, maybe it only cost that driver only 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. But when you multiply it out times the thousands or tens of thousands or millions of times of stuff like that happens in the industry every day, the impact to the industry is huge and significant. And so we thought we had an opportunity to address a problem which has just been, dealt with by everyone in the industry in a really simple way, using a lot of great new technology, and really focused on this problem. So we don't do anything else. We don't do load matching. We don't do dock scheduling. We're focused really on just what about this facility. And so we can track up to 70 different attributes about a facility, including things like, do you have Wi-Fi? Is there a CB channel that you monitor, and those sorts of things. Are appointments required? How do you schedule an appointment? That's where the connection with OpenDOC, one of them, comes in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But ultimately, one of our goals is, like for OpenDOC, is improve the communication, because that makes the entire industry more efficient. It gets your loads in and out faster. It keeps the drivers moving and them making money, and the trucking companies that they work for making money. And so those things are all very important to us. And on the flip side, we have a review system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a review system for drivers to give feedback to those locations. And I know there's a lot of concern about warehouses just hearing negative feedback, and we certainly hear that and understand that. But our average review is 3.65. So on average, the reviews are positive. And then part that's because of the way we set up our review system. We'll talk again a little bit more about that. But ultimately, it's a centralized location for you to control the information that's presented to the industry as a shipper to your partners, and a single way for them to learn what's new and up to date and current about your facilities.
Did we lose Jeff?
I think we lost Jeff. Let me see. I will bring up the presentation myself here if we can't get Jeff back. Jeff, you there?
So we can just continue on and
Yeah.
talking until Jeff gets back. So there's a number of problems that we're solving in having this partnership and integration between OpenDOC and Doc 411. One of them is efficiency, and that topic has already been touched on a little bit. The supply chain is highly inefficient, and there's a lot of technology being thrown at the problems definitely, in trying to add more efficiency. Scheduling is one of them. Scheduling is time consuming, as noted. And, as Eric kind of talked about, when you take, 5 minutes to schedule an appointment or 10 minutes to schedule an appointment, or even longer if emails are going back and forth, and multiply that over the millions of loads that are scheduled even every day, it has a huge impact on the overall supply chain. And so by taking that entire process down to a minute or a couple minutes to book an appointment, it has a massive and profound impact on the entire supply chain. So that's a big problem that together we're solving. And that the communication channels as it relates to drivers and warehouses and carriers and warehouse staff, it is also a very, very big problem. And this whole process of allowing the carriers and brokers to book online helps to solve that problem.
All right, guys, I think I've officially rejoined you.
Can you go to the next slide, Jeff?
Yeah, we sure can. We're on to scheduling and how it works today. Bob, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, fire away. Sorry about that technical difficulty. The good news is, technology not perfect either, but unlike if we were doing this the old-fashioned way, it's still recording. I can recover, rejoin. Like, we're just seeing the benefits of it now, even when there is a hiccup.
Yeah, no problem. So the process today, and this is a pretty simplified view of it. For those who haven't gone through the process, it's a little bit more challenging, but this is the basic flow. So the load is tendered between the shipper and the carrier. Once it is, then the carrier or broker coordinates that shipment with an operations team. And then the process starts of identifying the truck, the driver. So basic scheduling and availability comes into play. Once we determine who the driver and truck is going to be, then it's all about getting that appointment scheduled with the warehouse. And that's where this cumbersome, inefficient process comes into play of emailing, phone calling, sometimes text messaging. And then the kind of the instructions go back and forth, and then it kind of gets its way down to the driver. And that's also part of what Eric and Doc 411 are trying to solve is, once the information gets down to the driver, they tend to have some basic information. But there's a lot more information related to that facility that sometimes does not make its way down to the driver. And that's really where Doc 411 comes into play and really helping solve that problem.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Sorry, just overcoming some technical difficulties here. So bear with me for a moment. This is definitely not the time you want these to happen, but we will overcome. So appreciate that breakdown of the scheduling, and I think anybody who's been in the industry knows the pain they feel from it. And if you're living this day to day on the carrier or the warehouse side, there's far more complexity than just this, and there's numerous wasted minutes, emails, phone calls, back and forth, just trying to figure out when you can get your truck there. And so, yeah.
Yep, I can dive into, as you're working through that, how it works in OpenDOC.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, so OpenDOC has two sides to it. There's a warehouse interface. In that warehouse interface, that's where the warehouse can set up all of their docs, all their availability, all the rules around scheduling, and that's part of the power of OpenDOC is you can set up rules, who can schedule, where they can schedule, what docs are available at what time, that sort of thing, what type of loads they can take. So that's the warehouse interface. The other half of it is where the carriers and brokers go to schedule their appointments. And so they log into OpenDOC. They'd go to opendoc.com. There's a very short registration process. And once they log in, they search for the warehouse they'd like to schedule an appointment with. Um, when they find that warehouse, there's a schedule button, and they can click on that schedule button, and it pops open a window, and that's where they can pick the time, the date. There's some other parameters to pick. Very quick process of scheduling that appointment. But also within OpenDOC, when the carrier or broker is searching for their warehouse and they find it, there's a little I for information. And if they click on that I, that's where they can get information related to the warehouse. So this is where it pulls in the information from Doc 411. And as Eric mentioned, there's a lot of attributes. There's 70 different attributes that can be tracked within Doc 411 related to that facility. And some of those are readily available right within OpenDOC. So is there a lounge? Is there lumper service available? Overnight parking, restrooms on site? Where is the check-in location? So some of the most important ones are shown in kind of a snapshot view, but all of those attributes are visible as well through a link that puts the user right into Doc 411. And they can easily come back into OpenDOC and finish scheduling their appointment.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you picking me up there. So you can see down there in the bottom right, powered by Doc 411 and the additional details. And that's exactly right what Bob's describing. We can now hand it off to Eric, and you can see a much more robust view of that warehouse and some of the other great benefits. So Eric, if you kind of want to take us through, I know I'm just showing just a very small preview of all the attributes you have here, but if you can just start taking us through what this looks like and what a driver or a carrier would experience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Jeff. And it is just a small view, but it gives you a sense of what, say, somebody's scheduling this, or a driver's view, where they go from OpenDOC through to the little panel, which shows those first 5 attributes, and then over into the Doc 411, the full facility profile with all of those 70 attributes. And as we can see from the screenshot here, this particular warehouse, we don't have any photos for, but there is the ability to track and show photos or videos, as well as a facility map where you can highlight the actual yard entrance or highlight hazards in your yard, or things like tight turns, or where security or check-in locations are. All those are in an easy to view map beyond the other 70 attributes, some of which, for example, that we record that aren't in the OpenDOC panel are things like the yard speed limit. Is there a CB channel? And all 70 attributes we track, and as a common question is, well, do I have to fill out all 70 attributes? No, in fact, most, not all of those attributes probably apply to any one location. For example, the one here on the screen is a required internal temp. That's most practical and useful for, say, a cold storage warehouse, where the inside temp of the trailer has to be at a certain temperature before they can pump the dock. Ambient warehouse, of course, that doesn't matter or may not come into play. But this information can be updated at any time, like with your schedule. It's constantly changing. Information about this can't change at any time. And with our tools, we make it easy for a warehouse to update and say, we're running behind. Here's our information. And we can certainly schedule and show the demo and dig into a little bit deeper. But it's a quick view of what the facility profile looks like in Doc 411.
That's great. I appreciate that. And I know one of the things that jumps out to me always too is right along the top, you can see that depth. You get the info of all those attributes you're describing, but I know it's been really helpful to me. I've seen some pretty complex yards, and clicking the map and seeing actually where you're supposed to enter the yard. And you've even done some great work of shooting videos that shows how to get in and out of the yard. And, I've seen those videos, and I would have never guessed that was the way to do it. So you can see the immediate value there. And then same thing with the reviews. You can actually see additional qualitative feedback from drivers, or advice. Maybe it's a tough turn or a blind turn or a tough place to back in. So I just love that data there. So I think that was the big reason, we saw benefit in working together for us to really help arm the carriers with more data from Doc 411, and then help them know when they're supposed to arrive at the facility. And by doing that for the carriers, we make the lives of the warehouse facility much better, because everyone's on the same page and there's alignment in that communication. And so, you can see that we touched on a few of them. So Bob, why don't you take us through the benefits of us collaborating and bringing these systems together a little bit, and what we can maybe look forward to in the future?
Yeah, you bet. So one of the things that we're really focusing on is making sure that information is being shared to the drivers. That's really what this is all about, with this integration, just making sure that people have to make those decisions, and whose time is incredibly valuable, have the information they need to do their jobs properly. And so we're doing that today. But there's more features we have coming in the future. Within OpenDOC, when an action takes place, like an appointment is scheduled, there's an appointment confirmation email that gets kicked off to the carrier or broker. When an appointment is canceled, or when an appointment is marked as no-show, any kind of action that takes place kicks off these automatic emails. And what we want to do is make sure that we integrate into those emails some of this critical information from Doc 411. So we're making sure that the information flow continues throughout the entire process of booking, regardless of what status that appointment is in. And then also, we want to make sure that the value of Doc 411 continues to grow, and a lot of that value is through these reviews. People read reviews, they're very important. So we want to make sure that the process within OpenDOC makes it easier for the drivers to provide those reviews on a timely basis. Whether it's right when they've completed, or when they arrived, or maybe there's some other scenario that makes sense for the driver at that particular time to provide a review. We want to make sure that it's easy for them to do that at that time.
Thanks, I love it. And from the product side, this is the part where I geek out over it, and I love bringing this data and kind of expanding our platform, in particular around the warehouse information, the appointment confirmation emails. I think about when I book airline travel and I have stuff everywhere and I'm confused. I get that one email that kind of gives me everything I need, my itinerary, where to go, when to check in, what I need to have. And I hope to kind of replicate that experience, knowing that it's even more detailed for drivers, but to use that information powered by Doc 411 to give drivers that itinerary where they know everything. They know where they're supposed to go. They can quickly click it and see it in their native map application. They can get the time they're supposed to be there, and then all those great attributes and instructions that Eric's team can provide from Doc 411, and really set that driver up for a great experience. And when the driver has a great experience, that means they're providing great service, so the warehouse has a great experience. They're getting shipments on time. They're not having to answer questions. They're dealing with a happy and encouraged driver because they've actually been set up for success.
Right. That's a big one. We hear that a lot, about drivers get into a facility frustrated when they walk in the door. And when you talk to them, a lot of times, because they don't know, they've spent the last period of time trying to find out information that should be readily available. So.
Yeah, and I think we all know the pain of frustration. Sometimes it's hard to quantitate that, but if you've been in the industry, if you've talked to drivers or facilities, if it's a tough facility and they don't have this set up for success, there is a quantitative value, and it's in the rates. It gets built into the rate. If you build a reputation for being a challenging facility for a myriad of reasons, tough to get appointments, long dwell times, all of those things, it becomes a very real quantifiable cost. And so that's what I love about this. Not only does it improve people's just work experience, which makes them happier, it also ties to actually improving the financials. And so with that, we kind of have some other things we're excited about with future plans. So Eric, if you kind of want to take us through this and let us know, your perspective and how you see these things coming.
Yeah, so the facility map is a really big and really cool and impressive when you see it, feature of the facility profile. And we're working to expose that right within OpenDOC, so that driver who gets that email will have quicker access to that, one or two fewer clicks, and also share those warehouse ratings. So not only the driver rating, and again, our driver ratings tend towards the positive because of the way we ask the questions, but to share that with the drivers as well, beyond the objective rating that we're working on, which would be, we're working to make an industry way to rate and review facilities. but then also being able to schedule appointments right directly from within the Doc 411 interface. So plenty of options for how to integrate there and use our data together, whether you're coming from the OpenDOC or the Doc 411 side. And just to touch real briefly on that ratings, we've had customers who've told us that they've saved thousands, tens of thousands, or even $100,000 or more in their rates by just actually listening to the feedback that we've been able to provide them, because it's actionable data. It's not just a complaint. It's, you need to fix the lighting at this facility, and by doing that, drivers are more willing to go there and get a little bit better price. So we can certainly talk about that more in other later webinars, but want to at least introduce the possibility.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I've definitely heard some stories and different takes on that too, especially when it comes to safety. You know, a single claim far outweighs the cost of anything, you know, we're charging our software platform. So that blind corner, or that tough turn, or those tough potholes or things like that, that drivers can give the facility information on, so they can repair them and possibly prevent a claim, an injury, or damaged product, are just huge. And
Right.
Doc 411 really gives a platform for that. So, you know, thanks for everyone hanging in there. I know I had some technical difficulties. I appreciate Bob and Eric, the consummate professionals, not even phased, just continuing through that and letting me get recovered. So we appreciate everyone spending this time with us and learning a little bit more about Doc 411, OpenDOC, and how we work together. And so I'm going to open it up for a few minutes for some questions that I've had come through the chat and leading up to this. And so, you know, if you'd like to ask more questions, we're monitoring the chat right now, and suggestions if you need them. You know, if you're not sure about your crush or an interview you're going on, Bob and Eric can probably help you there. I'll probably try to save those for offline. So I know one of the ones I have queued up right now is, obviously we're talking about it, we see it everywhere, so we don't want to spend the entire time on it, but how has the pandemic impacted the service offerings? How are customers responding? What are you seeing on that front, Eric, from the Doc 411 side? How's this pandemic really enhancing or adjusting how people use your service today?
Well, you know, the biggest thing that we're seeing is it's causing warehouses and facilities to change their practices. And yeah, I don't think I need to tell anybody. It seems like it changes day to day and a lot of times, or even hour to hour sometimes. So just being able to communicate that, like the requirement for PPE, we through Doc 411 give you a great way to communicate that. And instead of you having to call every truck driver that's coming into your location, or all of your trucking company partners, for example, you can post that information once in your facility profile, and all of your partners that are subscribed to that profile are immediately notified. So you can come in and simply say, masks are required. We're going to take your temp when you're coming into the shipping office. Boom, it's out there. No surprises for that driver when they get up to your security gate and say, oh, I didn't know I needed a mask, or whatever it might be. So the simple process of being able to post and update your profile and communicate that out has been a big win for us in COVID, and for our customers and users.
That's awesome. And yeah, the PPE is so relevant. And, you know, now that you mention it, and we've definitely had more discussions and need to get more of that data, but that should start to bubble up and be some of our top attributes we show, so we can set up the driver for success there. Bob, how about on the appointment scheduling side? What are we seeing? How's the pandemic impacted that? What are we seeing with appointment scheduling overall?
Yeah, so this is a topic we could talk about all day long. I'm sure people are tired of talking about this topic. But one of the things that we've seen is the impact on the warehouses. So we have some really, really large businesses that use OpenDOC. And one of them, as Eric noted, deals with PPE. It's a very large healthcare distributor and manufacturer. And they told us point blank that if they would not have had OpenDOC, it would have been a complete disaster. And just kind of reiterating what it provides them: complete visibility into what trucks are arriving when. So instead of having the 2 miles of trucks lined up outside the warehouse, you don't have that. You may have a couple, but every truck is arriving at its appointed time. And it completely streamlines the process and makes it easier for both the drivers, carriers, as well as the warehouse staff. not only from a kind of a stress personnel, like Jeff, you're talking about, it makes for happier warehouse staff, definitely lowers the stress level when you don't see all those trucks lined up. But also it allows for better load planning and load prep. If you don't know what trucks are arriving when, it's a bit of a guess as to what loads to prep in what order. But when you know exactly when they're arriving, you can do a much better job of that, and that helps everybody. It helps streamline the entire process. So that's part of what we've been seeing during the pandemic, is it's really helped those overall warehouse processes to be a lot more efficient.
That's great. Looking at some other topics here, and there's definitely more than we can get to, so I plan on following up with everyone we don't get to. But another one that's popped up a couple times in regards to our products, OpenDOC and Doc 4-in-1. How are you thinking about autonomous trucking? So Eric, are there things you have in place today, or there's some thoughts of, we know we're a little bit ways from full autonomous trucking, but seems like we're getting closer every day. Do you have some things in your platform today that help address that, or that autonomous trucking would utilize?
Yeah, well, big one is the actual yard entrance. That piece of information alone is incredibly valuable versus the geocoded street address, wherever that might be. But actually having this very specific lat long of the yard entrance in our facility map is something that, is extremely valuable in and of itself in our data. So that is one of our key things we're working on and thinking about in terms of autonomous trucks and that whole direction of the industry.
That's great. Bob, how about from the scheduling side? What's autonomous trucking change with scheduling, or how can scheduling help lead into utilizing autonomous trucking?
Yeah, so OpenDOC is built with some of the latest technologies, and everything that we're doing in building out the platform is getting us ready for where the industry is going. I don't think we're going to see the roads loaded up with autonomous trucks in the next couple of days. It could be a while off, but we know it's coming. And so technology providers have to be aware of this and have to be prepared for it. When it comes to scheduling, everything is in place. All the groundwork is ready to go for when a truck basically schedules itself without having a human being having to actually go in and schedule the appointment. And so the hooks are in place. And so when that day comes, when that happens, we'll be ready to go, where it's machine to machine, and there will be no human needed to book an appointment. And it will take something that currently takes a couple minutes. We've already chopped down the time it takes to schedule an appointment from potentially hours of emails going back and forth to a couple minutes. Now, if it's machine to machine, it can potentially be a couple seconds. So that's kind of where the world is going, and we're definitely prepared for when that day comes.
That's awesome. I have a couple quick ones that I think I can answer them. So correct me or jump in if I don't do it right, but a couple came in here real fast that I think I can address. Do you have the metrics for the number or density of drivers or regular users for Doc 4-in-1, or is it geographically concentrated for Doc 4-in-1 or OpenDOC? So I know on the OpenDOC side, as far as our facilities, they're based where you'd expect, dense warehouse populations and dense human populations, Texas, California, Florida, as you'd expect. Eric, is there any insight you have? Are your drivers concentrated in certain areas who are using your application, or is it kind of central around those same distribution hubs?
Yeah, it pretty much follows the distribution you're talking about. We're not limited to any one region. We have U.S., Canadian, and Mexico facilities. So.
Yep, and we're the same. We have a few facilities in Mexico and Canada as well. Another one is, and it looks like this is for OpenDOC, are most of your warehouses public 3PLs or private? And actually, we have a really good mix. I would say public-private is sometimes harder to determine with some of the information we get, but I would say we actually have a pretty even split among those categories. We have some notable 3PLs who have multi-location on us and manage all their appointments through OpenDOC. And then we have a fair amount of private warehouses and individual, we'll call them, small and medium business owned exclusively by them. And so we have a pretty good mix of those, and I don't think it's concentrated in any one part. Bob, anything additional there? Is that kind of aligned with what you've been seeing in our numbers?
Yeah. One thing to add is the platform is built to be scalable. So if it's a business that has one warehouse or one shipping receiving area versus a Fortune 500 that has potentially thousands of warehouses, and we have both and everything in between, the system is built to be scalable to accommodate the needs of both the smaller operation and then the most complex operations in the world.
That's awesome. So with that, I'm going to ask the most fun question that we love, that we have to talk about. What's the best way to get started with Doc 411, Eric? And then after that, Bob, what's the best way to get started with OpenDOC?
Best way to get started with Doc 411, you can visit our website, fill out the contact form. You can email myself directly or our sales team, sales@doc411.com. Myself, eric.weidl@doc411.com. You can contact me on LinkedIn. We have a Facebook presence as well, or just visit our website, doc411.com.
Great, thanks, Eric. How about for OpenDOC, Bob?
Yep, pretty simple. You just go to opendoc.com and you can either give us a call and we can talk to you about how the solution can potentially work for your needs. But also there's a way to sign up for a demo, and it's a quick demo, and the process of becoming an OpenDOC client after that is very simple. So demo, if it works for your needs, we have an entire onboarding team that helps with the setup, configuration, and training process. And sometimes warehouses are up and running within a day. If it's a bigger operation, it can take a little bit longer. But because it's a SaaS product, it's all web-based. So establishing an account is a very, very simple process. And yeah, anytime you'd like, www.opendoc.com.
Sounds great. And look, there's a few more questions here. I know I'm personally going to reach out right after this call to Walt, Bob, Jeffrey. You guys all had awesome questions, and I will get back to you as soon as this is over. Thanks everyone for taking the time, getting through my personal technical difficulties that, I think my face is still a little red, blushing from those. So appreciate you taking the time, learning more about us, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So feel free to email us or message us directly, and we'll happily jump on the phone and talk more. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care.